All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to listen to one of our quarterly financial wellness webinars. Today, we have a special guest speaker with us here at LPL, Whitney. And as all of you know, we're going to be covering cybersecurity. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to turn it over to Whitney to present. As a quick reminder, we do offer and open this up at the end for questions. So if you do have any questions, there will be an opportunity to ask those at the very end of the presentation. So thank you all for your time again, and I will turn it over to Whitney.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. I appreciate it. Super happy to be here and excited to present to you all. I know some people are maybe still joining, but this is being recorded, and I will share how you all can ask your questions here in a moment. Okay, so for those of you who may not know who I am, I'm Whitney Coleman, and I've been with LPL for about 5 years. I'm a senior, but I'm in the InfoSec advisor and investor security teams. It's a big team. We do a lot of big things, and I'm located in the Northern Virginia area. I've been all over. I've lived in San Diego, and I've worked for companies like Deloitte and the DEA and DHS and all of the three-letter agencies you can think of in some capacity. And we've done a lot in my career and also at LPL to help make sure we're educating folks and keeping them abreast of what's going on in the world from a cyber perspective. So we're going to keep this somewhat high level, but informative. So please take notes. I will share the Slido right here. If you go to www.slido.com and then you type in this code, there'll be a little hashtag already there, but you just write Size Wealth 2025, and you can go ahead and add a question there, and we'll get to that towards the end. And I'll remind you later on. But we're going to hit on 4 topics today. We'll start with protecting your information. We'll get into current cyber scams and cyber attacks that we see. We'll talk about how to secure your devices and your accounts, and then we'll close out. We're going to try to keep it at the 35-minute mark, so I'm going to be keeping an eye on the time. But let's get into protecting your info. So what is cybersecurity? I know it's a super trendy word. I know we hear about it all the time, but ultimately cybersecurity is the art of protecting devices, networks, data, information from unauthorized access, right, or criminal use by somebody or somebody's, a group of people who should not have access, right? And we should care about it because growing up, I know we hear a lot about, bad guys and criminals and things that are happening in the world. And it seems very sneaky and behind the scenes. Sometimes it's kind of overt, but with cyber tactics, these bad actors, one, they're incredibly intelligent. They often work together. They know what they're doing, and it's a really interesting space. And it's very important that we care because just because we can't see things happening, right, doesn't mean that it's not something we should be paying attention to. And we have a lot of different classifications of what a cyber criminal could look like or some of the damage they could be doing. And obviously working in the government space for a while, there's a lot we worry about from, terrorism and warfare and things of that nature. But for most people, regular everyday crime is what we tend to see the most of, right? As well as sometimes disgruntled employees and things of that nature. But cybersecurity, it affects everybody. And it's something we all should definitely be paying attention to. Particularly, this is one of my favorite slides because it's a newer slide that we added to really hit on the fact that no matter where you are on this life spectrum here, this life timeline, there's always something that's going to be out there that could potentially be coming after or trying to target your data, your information, your accounts, you as a person. And so we see with the youth and some younger folks who may not even have access to technology yet. We see new account creation. We see synthetic identity theft. Synthetic identity theft I think it's a fancy term, but it's really when people will use like certain information that's real and then add in information they've made up, right? So they may use somebody's date of birth or address or whatever, and they'll kind of piecemeal it together. But we do see child identity theft. We see obviously adult identity theft. We see credit card fraud, wire fraud, employment fraud. We see all these things, right, as we are going through the ages of, becoming a teenager, getting your first job, going to college or going to school or getting your first job, all the way through to the time of retiring and with our elders and elder abuse, the phishing scams we see a lot with folks who are on the phone quite a bit tax refund frauds. I mean, there's so many, right? But no matter where you are and where your family is, there's something we need to be paying attention to. That's really the point. Not to scare anybody, but just the point. Now, with cybersecurity and where we're at here today with Size Wealth and LPL, this is kind of like a three-way street, right? We have you all with your accounts, your personal info that we have to make sure we're and you are communicated to know what's going on, and we communicate, et cetera. But we also want to make sure you guys are doing your side and taking care of your information as best as you can. And then we've got your firm, Size Wealth, right? They've got their responsibilities to take care of their offices and provide trainings and create those relationships where we can have these conversations. And then we have LPL. And this is actually a picture of our previous CISO at the Fort Mill office in our SOC, which is a really cool. This is really cool. It's very much like what you see on TV with all the screens and the data and whatnot. But we have our LPL dedicated staff that's here to help make sure that you have what you need, and we're communicating and doing our best to protect all of your data and all of our data. So it's definitely a group effort, right? Now, one thing that we have offered, which is somewhat new, I guess to me it's still kind of new, but we have this LPL Public Cybersecurity website where you can go and we put articles and videos and information so that you can gain knowledge and really understand what's going on. And we try to put like the hottest topics there, and we're constantly adding new things. So you'll see like an article about password security, you'll see device security, you'll see phishing scams. We'll try to put some of the newer scams that we're seeing or that we're hearing questions about. So we try to keep this up to date. We've got a lot of folks who've joined our team over the last few years whose job it is really to, come up with the topics, look at what we're hearing, look at what we're seeing, and then create content to put out there to help you all. So please feel free to check that website out. Now, let's talk about some cyber scams. Ultimately, cyber scams, they pretty much are kind of what they sound like, right? It's a type of scam where someone is being dishonest or manipulative, and they're trying to steal money. Sometimes they're trying to steal data, but they're pretending, most of the time, they're pretending to be somebody who they are not, right? And tricking people into believing something and then ultimately giving them data or money. And this is really important because, again, they get more and more clever. We see, it's interesting, I showed you the timeline of, the lifetime of a person and sort of how different scams affect different people at different ages. But throughout the year, there's different scams that we see because of the time of year. So like around tax season, we see an uptick in tax fraud or in tax refund scams, right? We see, and they're so creative. Most of you on this call may have received a text message from the toll folks, and we'll talk about that, right? Some of these scams they'll hit a lot of people or a subset or a certain community. It's very interesting how this works, but billions of dollars are lost every single year and reported to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is also known as IC3, every single year. And we try to keep up to date with these numbers because I find them to be very interesting. I did a whole presentation once on like the statistics around some of these scams and just some of the things happening in the cyber world. So I'll give you a few stats today, but that group, the FBI's annual Internet Crime Complaint Center, they aggregate all this data. There has been a huge uptick and an increase in reported investment fraud scams specifically. So it's interesting, too, how the different scams will sort of ebb and flow. Over $1.3 billion were reported to be lost due to tech support scams. It's wild that this scam is still so popular and so effective. I went to present in front of a group in Indiana earlier this spring, and there was a gentleman there who said he had a tech support scam happen to him almost 4 times, right? Or he had been presented with this 4 times, which is really, is really interesting to see. And the government impersonation scams are also, in my opinion, there's been a huge uptick in those as well. And then over 100,000 investment and tech support scams were reported. And that number is interesting because this is just what's reported. So who knows, right? The number that isn't reported, maybe because it was stopped early or because not a lot of money was perceived lost, right? Sometimes these scams get caught early. So it's really interesting to see. Now, I want to talk about social engineering. This is also a very hot topic word. I really like it, but what it is because it encompasses all the different ways in which these cyber criminals and bad actors will use the social aspect and our emotions to take advantage of people. And they do it in so many different ways. We have phishing, which most of us are familiar with, right? Because we've all had email for decades at this point. We probably have a handful of email addresses. Most people have more than one, right? So we've seen phishing emails, we've seen phishing attempts. We may have even, come across some really interesting phishing scams in the past. And phishing over the phone, right? That's going to be using someone's voice. We'll have a phone conversation with somebody who's trying to get data, right? Or get us to provide them money. And then we have the smishing. And the smishing is over text, which is that toll road one that I mentioned. And then we just have regular scams, right, which can take shape in a couple different ways. But there's actually a fourth one, and I thought about swapping it here. But the fourth one is quishing with a Q, and that's with the QR codes. So if you see, those QR codes around the city, if you go, I don't know, if you go out one day and you see these QR codes laying around, those are the ones we don't want to use our phone, right, to scan. If you're at a restaurant, right, and you're looking at a menu that's different, but when you're out and about, it's best practice not to, because there are people who have created these QR codes that are malicious and will either lead you to a malicious site or will take you somewhere and then it will try to auto download, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to be careful about what we scan. Now, this is something I think we all need to take a second to pay attention to, because we all get emails every single day, hundreds of emails every single day. And a lot of us are just blowing through our emails so quickly, we're not taking the time to really investigate what's real and what's not. So I have what's called the top-down approach. And that's really, one, slowing down and not going so quickly, which I know it's hard to do. I struggle with it every day. But taking the time to slow down, especially if your spidey senses go off, maybe you feel like there's a red flag, definitely slow down and take this top down. The first thing I tell people, look at who it's from. If you ever get an email that seems kind of funky, look at who it's from. My mom used to run our family Netflix account, and she got tired of dealing with it, and my sisters and I, and so she made me the admin for the account. One day she gets an email. She's like, Whitney, what is this email from Netflix? And the first thing I had her do was I was like, did you verify who it was from? And she was like, no. And that's how we were able to find out that the from was actually some bizarre email. It was not, account at Netflix or support at netflix.com. It was something else. So definitely check who it's from. Typically they want to get your attention. We've paused your credit. You've won a prize, something like that. The generic greetings, that's a red flag. It should say your name, right? It should say, hi, Emily, hi, Whitney. It should say your name, right? That's typically a red flag, especially if you've signed up for those emails versus if you haven't. Any kind of link or attachment that you might see, red flag, right? Especially if it's embedded, you want to be careful where you click. Sometimes they'll get really slick and they'll make an image in the email, and that image is hyperlinked to take you somewhere. So you want to be careful. And then my favorite, one of the easiest things, checking for grammatical errors, pretending you're an English teacher and you've got your reading cap on and you're going through this with a fine-tooth comb. And then that closeout, right, a generic or vague signature. Now, again, sometimes you'll get an image and it looks real, but when you start to click and go places, it will take you somewhere you don't want to be. The text messages, this is a really popular scam that we see, especially during the holidays, right? Remember I mentioned these are sometimes cyclical scams. In the time frame of the holidays, we're all ordering things, right? We're ordering gifts on the internet, we're ordering decorations, we're online shopping, and everybody's waiting for a package. So I find these UPS or USPS or FedEx, I see everybody, right? These text messages and these sort of scams that will come out, and of course, like, there's a party that wants to click, well, what if it is a package that I ordered, right? Sometimes we order from, websites, maybe from an Etsy or something like that. We're not certain what the delivery process is, but please make sure you don't engage with these types of emails and text messages. And that send, or that at the bottom, you'll see that report, and that's where you want to click. Definitely if it's something that you don't recognize or don't want to engage with. So same thing, you want to pay attention to who it's coming from. You want to pay attention to the urgent attention grabbing, you've won $100, right? There's usually some kind of, 911 sort of thing. The links, obviously in a text message, you won't get an attachment, but you might get a link, and you have to be very careful when you are engaging with these. So definitely block and report, right? So you'll see a lot of different types of scams come your way. From the invoice scams, those tend to have an attachment. The romance scams tend to be scams that we still see to this day and are incredibly detrimental to people. Gift card scams, I thought those were kind of a thing of the past at one point, and I started realizing very slowly that these are incredibly powerful to this day because there is no way to really track gift card scams. And once the money has been sent, it's really hard to go back, right, and to revert that. So you've really got to be careful. My advice to you would be, please do not ever buy a gift card unless it is an actual gift that you intend to never see again, right? And only make sure you are gifting a gift card as a gift to someone that you know, right? Not for any other reason. That's going to be one of the things to pay attention to the most. So not clicking on attachments and engaging with folks that you don't know, even if they say they're, legitimate. Large IT companies, they're not going to call or reach out, right? Apple has never called. I've been an Apple person for many, many years. They've never called me. Unless I had a call with the Geek Squad or, somebody from Apple support, I'm not getting a call from them. If you're unsure, verify. One time I got a call from Bank of America, and I didn't know why they were calling me, and I was a little unsure. And I said, you know what? Can I hang up and just verify this, and then we can talk maybe later? And the person I was speaking to was completely nice about it and was like, oh, absolutely. And we hung up the phone. I dialed in myself to Bank of America support. And then I said, okay, I'm getting a phone call, blah, blah, blah. They're telling me this. And they want me to verify my account. And I was like, absolutely not. And I called through, and they're like, oh, yeah, Whitney, we noticed that you moved and blah, blah, blah. We wanted to make sure we sent your new corporate card to the right address, right? So that's what we can do. And most people will not be offended if you do that. And my point to you all, too, would be if anybody is ever upset with you for trying to validate who you are or who they are, they get upset, that's a red flag. Anytime you're on a phone with somebody and they're acting sort of indignant about you being unsure or wanting to verify or, not wanting to send the money or whatever it is, that's a red flag. And I've seen people get very, very upset on these phone calls. And that's been a true tale of who is legitimate and who is not. So let's talk about securing your accounts and devices. Now, this is a huge topic. I'm going to limit myself to only talking about this for 2 minutes. Passwords. I cannot talk more about passwords and how important they are. This is one of the best, easiest, and most obvious ways to protect yourself and your information. It starts with your passwords. So we want to make sure you're using unique passwords, which I know is difficult, right? Obviously, the average person has 100 accounts. And I feel like if you have hobbies, kids, pets, you like to travel, you have a business, if you have any of these things, you have way more than that, right? But to have 100 unique accounts and 100 unique passwords is difficult. And so the best way to do that is to have a password manager. Now, we recommend that you use a password manager like as a standalone offer from an actual password manager company. Not necessarily the ones that maybe come with, Google or Apple. Google and Apple will push you to use their password managers, but they're not really password managers as much as I think we've been calling them password storage. There's a different term because the password manager it really, in our opinion, alludes to a lot more, right? Where you can get a lot more from a password manager, including the ability to use it on multiple devices, right? To have there's an app with it, you have more encryption, you have more. You have the ability to have like a data monitoring where they're making sure your passwords don't end up on the dark web. And if they do, they let you know. So these kinds of things. So password managers, 1000%, please get one. They have family accounts where you can get 6 different vaults or 5 different vaults. And all of you and your family members can have your own password accounts, right, where you manage your own. And the other thing, too, about password managers that a browser one won't give you is if there's ever an emergency, right, you can set up an emergency contact to get access to your accounts. Because if something ever happens to me, who's going to find out, what's going on, right? I'd have to depend on family to try to figure out my account information, whereas if I make someone my emergency contact, it makes life a lot easier. So really recommend getting a password manager and organizing your accounts that way. It will keep you on your toes. And it will make sure, I think I've gone over my 2 minutes, so we're going to keep going. But it will make sure that you don't reuse passwords. It'll make sure that, because it creates the password for you, it stores it for you, and then it manages it all for you. It'll make sure you're definitely not using dictionary words, and it has multi-factor. So you want to have multi-factor on your password manager, but you also want to have multi-factor on pretty much everything that offers it. So I'll tell a quick silly story. My youngest sister, we were at Starbucks one day, this was years ago, and she says, well, Whitney, I think I have a free birthday drink. Her birthday's in May, it's like September, and apparently her Starbucks account had been hacked by somebody in Florida. We're in Virginia, and they had been using her points in Florida for weeks. And then they had called Starbucks and changed her birthday so they could use her birthday rewards. And it was this whole thing, and it was because her password was probably terrible, right? And she didn't have multi-factor enabled. So in that moment, I made everybody in my family turn multi-factor on for their Starbucks account. It sounds silly, but it's an easy way for somebody to, if there's no protection, it really is like leaving your door unlocked, right, to your house. We really want to make sure we're protecting ourselves. And that's the way to think about multi-factor as well. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but this is an indicator here of kind of where we want our passwords to be. The longer and the more unique, the easier or the harder it is for somebody to get in, and the shorter and less unique and, you know, only made up of numbers or only lowercase, right? Those passwords are going to be a lot quicker for these folks to get in. And they have technology where they call it brute forcing into your accounts, where it does it like with an algorithm. They're able to, and I'm not great at like the numerical background of this, but there is like a numerical equation that they're able to use to try to constantly get in. So you definitely want to be in the like yellow green area, and a password manager can help you do that without, you know, trying hard, right? Without having to do too much. So with that multi-factor, I want you to think about like your password is like the key to your house, and the MFA is like your alarm system. It's going to be that Ring camera. It's going to be the attack dog. It's going to be your, you know, old school bring security, right? We want this level of security on our accounts, because if somebody is able to guess your, you know, I love my German Shepherd 44 password, and they're in and you're using that password for so many things, as most of us are reusing, then it puts you at risk. And there's different ways to utilize MFA. Obviously, the email, most of us use the text option. There are authenticator apps, the tongue twister, and where you can go into an app like Microsoft Authenticator, and it will run a new code every few seconds, right? And then technically, multi-factor is also biometric based as well, right, with your facial recognition and whatnot. But we do recommend having MFA on, in my opinion, any account where you have data that you don't want someone to get in. So that includes anything financial, obviously, any bills you might pay, even if it's something silly, like maybe for your pets or something seemingly small, right? So anything where you're spending money, your credit card is attached to it. And then, yeah, anything that for traveling, anything that somebody could get in and find out information about you that they could also use against you in maybe an identity theft sort of situation. So we just want to protect ourselves. And this is a really easy way to do it. Now, social media, I understand not everybody may not be on social media, but even if you have an account to keep in contact with your family, and they actually have tools and technology out there to know if you have a dormant account and you don't really log in, and they will target those. So always make sure you're using strong passwords. You definitely want to have MFA, right, on your passwords for any social media, LinkedIn, any of them, because if somebody gets in, I have seen this time and time again, they get in, let's say Emily and I are friends on social, they get into Emily's account and they will send me a message. And I'm like, oh, it's Emily. And then I see the message, it's a link, it's a bad link, I engage, now they've got my info, and the cycle just keeps going, right? And they're able to do this. I don't know why they do it. There's a couple different reasons why, but it's terrible. So we want to make sure we're doing our best to protect ourselves so that this doesn't happen. And if you ever do get a message from somebody that is actually a friend of yours, definitely do your due diligence and reporting that and letting that person know, hey, Emily, by the way, I think your account might be hacked. I just got a message from you and it doesn't look right. And then that way, you know, we can kind of take as a team, as a group, as a community, we can take initiative to make sure we're protecting everybody. And definitely, you know, you want to make sure you know who you're connecting with online. It's wild how much personal information is out there on us and how quickly it's findable by folks who are trying to find it or who are interested. So I think a lot of times we post pictures, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there are people out there who can take an image and do all these different things to find out where that image was taken, right? And tell you exactly where that photo was taken. And it can lead to this snowball effect. So we want to be careful with what we're saying online, what we're posting online, and who we're engaging with online. Now, there is a website, haveibeenpwned.com. That's haveibeen.pwned.com. Now, most of you will probably come up on this website in some way, shape, or form, especially if you've had an email address for longer than 5 minutes. Most of the companies that we engage with have had, at some point, right, from the Home Depot to Target to Starbucks, all these companies have had incidents or data breaches over the years. It's not a bad thing that you're maybe on this website. What we do want to do is make sure, like, if your Yahoo account or if, I don't know, a Gmail account or an Apple account comes up on this, that those are properly protected and that you pay attention to what's going on. Now, at home, we really want to make sure that all our devices at home, especially if you have smart devices, are regularly protected. You want to update them. You want to update everything whenever it asks to be updated, right? And a lot of people don't realize why this is so important. And the main reason is, especially for like computers, phones, and other types of software and hardware, oftentimes there will be something patched, right? They're trying to fix something, or they've noticed that something is a vulnerability or could be a vulnerability. So the tech folks go, they fix it, and they push the update so that you're better protected. A lot of us, myself included, see these updates as a nuisance and as annoying because it's disruptive to our day. But it is really important to make sure we're taking the time to regularly update our devices, mainly for, if nothing else, think of it as a security update, right? What if there is a security incident that they've noticed and that they've done their due diligence on to fix, and we just ignore it, right? We just ignore it. We don't update our device. It's sitting there. It hasn't been updated in months, and now maybe we're at risk for whatever it was. So we really want to pay attention to that. Definitely have, good passwords on things, particularly, home devices, maybe like a Ring camera or maybe your Alexa or something like that. Use your password manager for things at home, right? You can use your password manager for, work things, for home things, family things, etc. And definitely only go and engage with websites that start with HTTPS. Right? You know how right before the www, there's the // and then there's the HTTP or HTTP. We want to make sure there's an S there, especially if we're going to make a purchase, because that S means security, and it means that we're on a website that has, paid to have that additional security in place. Now, backing up is important. I used to talk a lot about this. Nowadays, we have cloud solutions that are out there that make life a heck of a lot easier than having these handy-dandy portable storage devices. But I will say we want to make sure we're still taking the time to ensure that we are backing devices up. I had a coworker whose wife had a baby, and they were taking all these photos, of course, and then their phone broke, or their phone got, it fell into the sink or the bathtub or something, and they were so upset that they might have lost all that data. And it was a whole thing to get that data back. When you're automatically downloading things to the cloud and storing things, it makes life a lot easier versus if you're winging it and you're like, oh, well, I'll update it, whenever. That's kind of the issue with physical storage. I used to have, and I have it on my bookshelf back there, but let's just pretend we've got a little, external storage device. The only issue with these is you've got to make sure you've got the right cord, you're updating them, and you're actually physically taking the time to back up your computers or your cell phones. We just really want to make sure we're doing that, right? Because otherwise things can happen. And when we see these ransomware attacks, a lot of times with ransomware, people will try to gain access to data that's in like a storage plan or a storage vault of some sort and use that against you. Like, well, you're not getting these pictures back of your kids or of your family or whatever, and so you pay this fee. When you have everything backed up and properly protected, you don't have to worry about that. So something to think about. Identity theft protection. A lot of us know the importance of making sure we're paying attention to our accounts, our credit. LifeLock is really popular, right, for keeping this at the top of mind as well. You want to make sure you're doing something to pay it, and you really want to pay attention. Same with a password manager. You do not want to set it and forget it. Just like with your credit, you do not want to set it and forget it. Please make sure you're taking the time to Regularly check, regularly review, see what's going on with your credit score, see what's going on with your passwords. You know, this knowledge really is power, right? Into understanding what may or may not be happening behind the scenes that you might have missed, right? We get busy. And if you are someone who prefers to just freeze your credit, you can absolutely do that, right? You can freeze your credit. You can unfreeze it at certain times. You can unfreeze it for certain things, right? Like if you want to get a new car. And it's really easy to do that. Now, this last section here, protecting your family, I just really like to reiterate, it's summertime. A lot of us are on the go. Please stay vigilant, right? There's so many different things. This time last year, I was actually in Spain for almost a month. It was such an amazing trip, but I knew that pickpocketing was really popular where I was going, and I made sure I learned about the local scams there and like kept my phone. Even when I was there, people were like, you want to make sure you keep your phone close, keep your phone close. We get so used to just laying our phone down at a table, sitting outside, and then, you know, somebody could come and swipe your phone. So being vigilant and learning about where you're going, turning MFA on, right, which we talked about, using that portable charger versus plugging into those like communal charger spaces, those can sometimes be dangerous. And then avoiding public Wi-Fi. Avoiding public Wi-Fi is so important. I know for our advisors, you know, it's a rule that they cannot use public Wi-Fi without using a virtual private network or a VPN to protect themselves. But we definitely, I totally recommend not using public Wi-Fi, particularly like, you know, a cafe where it's just open, right? Or like the Starbucks where it's just open, or even the Wi-Fi at the airport, one of my least favorites. We definitely do not want to be on those Wi-Fis, especially if we're doing anything important, right? Like paying a bill or checking accounts, like those types of things. With younger folks, we want to make sure we're paying attention to how our family members, honestly, older or younger, are managing themselves online, right? Not sharing passwords, not giving their passwords away, conducting those follower checks, using the parental controls. There's so many things that you can do to protect your kids and your elders when it comes to being online. So just, you know, staying abreast to what's going on. Every time I watch the news, there's something new. And I think it's important to pay attention. So my call to actions are as follows. LPL is committed to making sure, and Size Wealth as well, to making sure that everybody is protected, right? The advisors are protected, we are protected, and you are as well. Social engineering attacks take advantage of human emotions. So please pay attention to that and understand that they will sneak their way into your phones, your social media, your email accounts, wherever they can to try to get access to either data or money. Don't click on those links. Any links that you might get that seem kind of sketchy or just in general, opening attachments from unknown sources could also be a problem. So just paying attention to what you're clicking on and slowing down when we're looking through our emails, right? Slowing down when we're looking through our emails. I also will say too, it's not on here, but one of my other call to actions is typically when it comes to like phone calls and vishing, we want to make sure that we're not, it's really tough over the phone when we give so much information, we can't always take it back. So be careful when you're sharing information over the phone or when you're talking to somebody on the phone. And you know, if you don't know the number, if you don't recognize the number, you're not expecting that phone call, you can always screen that call and have it sent to voicemail. If it's important, they will usually leave a message, right? And you can call back. Value security over convenience when traveling, and to be honest, all of the time, because we want to make sure that we're taking the time to verify who people are when they call us versus just saying, oh, of course, this is, you know, Bethany from Delta Airlines or, you know, Visa, Master, whatever. But we want to make sure that we are valuing that security. And then protecting your accounts, right? Protecting your accounts with a password manager, a really good password, turning multi-factor on for everything that you possibly can. One thing I will say, I get a lot of comments about this is, well, it asks me for a code all the time. It's such a hassle to have to like put the code in. Most of your accounts nowadays, you have multi-factor set up. It will not ask you for a code every single time. You can turn that feature off. The biggest thing around multi-factor is so that if Emily and I are in Virginia and then we are hanging out, we're talking, whatever, and then somebody tries to get into one of our accounts and they're in Utah or in Florida or in California, somewhere else, we will get an email saying, hey, did you try to log on from Utah or Florida? to get to your email account. And if we didn't, right, we can immediately say no. But it's really for if somebody's trying to get into your account from a different location, maybe on a different Wi-Fi or on a different device. So that's when your multi-factor will tend to kick in, which is when we want it to. So it's not meant to be an inconvenience or a nuisance. It's really supposed to be for acknowledging that somebody's logging in from maybe a new place or maybe from a new device. And you can control all that nowadays. Whereas I think back in the day when we first started doing multi-factor, it was like every single time, all the time, and it drove a lot of us a little bit mad. And now we have more options. So with that being said, I think I'm right at time. I'm super excited for your questions. You can go over to slido.com and enter in the code SIDESWealth2025. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can pop over and see what questions we may be getting, but I'm really excited that you all chose to come to this afternoon, and hopefully you learned something new, and hopefully you also learned something that maybe you can tell or share with somebody that you love and that you care about, because this information is really important for us to share. And I know it's a little bit like homework, but I would like to challenge each of you to make sure that you have multi-factor enabled on your social media and on your most important accounts. That would be your homework. If I were to give any, that would be my homework for you guys to go do those things. For those of you who are considering password managers who maybe don't have one, we have so many options out there, and there's an article I can send to Emily that she may be able to send out to you guys about how to choose and like what options and whatnot. It's hard to say if there's a best one out there. There's so many good ones nowadays. But I just like to tell you, most people, when you're paying for one, you typically get more than when you're not paying for one, right? You tend to get more from a password, from a settings perspective, from a security perspective. You get more when you pay for it. So that would be my suggestion. Also, it's more convenient to use across devices and whatnot. So there's so much to gain from using a password manager. And if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Sides Wealth team, and somebody from that team can loop me in, or they can also maybe answer that as well. So I'm going to pause, stop sharing. Okay, cool. All right, so I see a good amount of people on here. Thank you, Maria. Okay, cool. I'm going to do I always like to do a quick shout out to people who joined. I see Carol, Chad, Deborah, James, Justin, Kenneth, Lisa C, Lisa L, Maria, Rita, Sherry, Veronica. Thank you all for joining us here today. I know there is a recording here that you may be able to get access to once this is over with. If there's anybody who maybe missed the first part or want to go back and see any other things that you might have missed. Let's see, Emily, are you seeing any questions? I'm going to refresh.
The only question I see right now is, can the presentation and the slides be viewed again? And yes, you'll get a recording, and we can send the presentation out as well. So absolutely, after this, that will be available. But I don't see any questions yet. Let's see.
Serena says, is it worth it to have one of those credit monitoring platforms like LifeLock? Yeah. I do feel like LifeLock is super helpful for folks to have that awareness and understanding, and to also be able to lock things down literally and make sure that you're protecting yourself. LifeLock has so many features that I think are really beneficial. They also have, I believe, that one feature that I really like from a password manager for if there is an emergency, right? You're able to sort of have a delegate or somebody there as like a backup. I really like things like that because I think it helps to, one, if there is ever an emergency, what are you going to do? And I know we put these plans in motion for so many other aspects of our life, but we don't always put that in motion for like our accounts and our data, or things like that. I know cell phones offer that, right? Apple will offer that, where if something happens, somebody can get access. That means a lot to me, and I think it means a lot to a lot of people to be able to have that that ability. But there's a ton of reasons why you could use a tool like LifeLock. It does way more than credit monitoring. I know there may be levels to it now and different versions of it and whatnot, but I know that LifeLock has been a trusted tool for a lot of people for a long time. Okay, You're welcome, Kenneth.
Whitney, what would you say is like one takeaway everybody listening could walk away from this presentation with? I know sometimes it can feel overwhelming, all of these different things that we should be doing to protect ourselves and our accounts. What would you say is like what is the one takeaway people should be walking away with today from this?
The one takeaway is we have to be incredibly vigilant and we have to stay informed. That's the one like high level takeaway. I know sometimes because it's cyber and it's tech, we tend to not want to get involved, or our eyes will gloss over and we're like, oh, it's too much drama to even understand what this means and what that means. And I understand it can be frustrating and you're venturing into the unknown, but I think knowledge really is power here. So continuing to educate yourself. I would say if I had to pick a second one, like a more actionable one, it would be the MFA piece, right? Because even if your passwords all are the same thing, if you have the I love my German Shepherd password for every single account that you have, having multi-factor is going to help a lot to keep bad actors from getting into those accounts. I do not recommend that you have that one password for everything, right? It goes against a lot of the things I talked about, particularly using dictionary terms, right? That was a no-no in my password makeup, but I think having multi-factor is it's a game changer for pretty much every account that you can think of. So I definitely recommend MFA, and I kind of gave that as my homework. So I take action, please, and go and make sure, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, even if you don't use them often, right? Start easy with the social media and then branch out to some of the, I call them sillier accounts like the Starbucks and, maybe Chewy if you have a pet, right? The Chewy account that you're ordering all your pet supplies from. Start there and continue to add multi-factor. It's a game changer. But yeah, that would be my one takeaway.
I don't see any other questions that have come through. So I just wanted to say, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Whitney, for your time and your knowledge. I learned a lot. I learned new words, smishing and quishing. And so I know I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did. A lot of you on this call know how to get in touch with myself and members of our team. So if you have any questions after this, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And if we can't answer, we will certainly get Whitney involved and she'll be able to help us too. So again, thank you all for your time and have a great rest of your day.